Hey there, welcome to The Spread, Nesson's football podcast on Nesson.com's Mike Cole, joined, as always, by Ricky Doyle, Andre Khatchaturian. Gentlemen, how are we?
Doing well. How are you, Mike?
Same old.
I'm also doing well.
Good. Good to hear. Yeah.
Get that out there.
I wanted to make a big show of it this week, considering you guys got so butthurt last week that I didn't ask you how you're doing. So, we are here to talk about football, as we do every week. We will pick give our against the spread picks for the three biggest games of the weekend, do locks and upsets, and then we will hit the dusty trail and get on with our lives and do other things. But in this 30 to 40 minutes, this will be the main focus of our life, and we will endeavor to make this as good as it can possibly be. And if you appreciate that effort and you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars, tell us how great we are. Just tell your friend, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and help us out, because we're putting in the work. So it would be nice to get a little notoriety on the other end. That's pretty desperate. I'm okay with saying that. Like, I'm just, it's nice a nice pat on the behind every once in a while is nice, and a 5-star review is about as close as you can get to a pat on the behind from a stranger. That's not weird. So
I'm not above a shameless plug.
Yeah. So
by no means.
Andre,
what's going on, Mike? I have the standings for you.
How did we do last week?
I just want to applaud Ricky because he went 11-2-1 last week. I think that's the best record we've ever seen for as long as we've done this show. That's the only ones you missed on, Ricky, were the Patriots 49ers. You picked the Patriots, and I believe the Rams and Bears Monday night game. You picked the Bears. Other than that, you hit everything else. I hope you actually put some.
So games we mentioned on this show last week were a rough spot for me, because I think the Bears are my upset pick, and then we talked about the Patriots last week. But I've been scratching and clawing this year, so it's good to finally have some results.
Yeah, and Mike, you and I, both of us went 7-6-1, also solid, respectable.
Yeah, I'd take that. Yeah.
So yeah, both of us, all three of us, we did well.
Except for on the show. I think I did terribly on the show, which is embarrassing, because then people are just going to stumble across it and be like, look at this idiot, he went 0-3. But no, there are full week picks that, by the way, you can go to Nesson.com/odds on Thursday, or, by the way, Nesson.com/thespread, and get all of our picks Thursday morning, midday usually. Try to do it Thursday morning, but it doesn't always work out that way. So that's
prior to the Thursday night game, you'll get it at some point.
Yeah, it'll be up before Thursday night. Yeah, that's a good point.
But in general, this past week, best week of the season.
So that was the first time it felt like football season to me. And I think a lot of that is like the COVID stuff and just election season, everything that's going on in the world. That was the first time in a while I just sat there and be like, oh yeah, this is why I try to get all of my chores done before Sunday morning, so I can just sit here and rot on the couch watching football. It was enjoyable. The games felt like they meant something. There was good juice to them. A lot of good stuff. So
I think that was the thing, is they felt like they meant something. Like you finally have a fairly decent read on like who the actual contenders are and who actually sucks. And obviously the finishes to a lot of those games, especially in the 1:00 slate, were just out of control. So
and even the Patriots game, there's something captivating about watching the Patriots get their heads kicked in. There's just it was the Sunday night game was awesome as well. The Monday night game sucked.
That Sunday night game was like basically what you expected from those two teams.
Yeah,
of just like total back and forth until the very end. So no, you didn't. So you had the Cardinals in that game, and so you didn't do horribly last week.
Yeah, that's true. The NFL lucked out once again. Like they've taken a beating for how they've handled the COVID stuff, but they have walked into just benefits left and right from the scheduling stuff, because that should have been that Raiders-Bucks game, which actually would have been a fun little kick in the face to Patriots fans having to watch that game on Sunday night after watching the Patriots. But that would have been that Bucks-Raiders game. But since Trent Brown tested positive and they weren't sure if that game was going to go off, they flexed that Cardinals-Seahawks game into Sunday night, and that worked out pretty well. So, any other thoughts? Nothing?
It's a decent week of games, I guess, coming up this week.
Very good slate this week. I think it's just, I'm high on this week. So maybe I'm just still high from last week, but I like what we've got coming up here in week 8. Without further ado, let's get into it. The game of the week. This one I would like to be, everybody's begging for this to be flex because Sunday night, by the way, is Eagles Cowboys. I think it's Sunday night. That game will stink. The world is begging for this to be flexed to Sunday night. It's not going to happen. But we've got an AFC North black and blue division throwdown in Baltimore with the Pittsburgh Steelers, fresh off of their dramatic win in Tennessee, still undefeated, go to Baltimore to take on a 5-1 Ravens team coming off of the bye. The Ravens, as it stands right now, are 4-point favorites. Just a few things to run down here before we get into our picks. Steelers 6-0 for the first time since 1978. It's the only other time in franchise history they've been 6-0. They won the Super Bowl that year. Baltimore, meanwhile, 5-1 for the third time in franchise history. They went to the Super Bowl the other 2 years that they started 5-1, which was 2012 and 2000. So something's got to give in that regard. The home team has won 25 of the last 38 meetings between these two teams. Just, somebody's probably going to get hurt. This is just going to be wild. Injuries left and right. It just two great defenses. Ricky, how do you handicap this one?
This is so maybe this is me like putting my tinfoil hat on, but like I almost feel like I'm being baited into somebody's trying to bait me into taking the Steelers here. Like I'm getting points with an undefeated team that passes the smell test. I mean, the historical track record speaks for itself. I mean, dating back to last season, they were good. So like, this isn't an undefeated team that just kind of came out of nowhere and, the advanced analytics don't back it up. Like, this is a really good football team. That being said, I'm leaning Ravens in this one, and maybe it's because I'm sort of banking on a letdown spot for the Steelers after last week's game against the previously undefeated Titans. The fact that Baltimore is coming off the bye, but I don't know. I just think that what we have seen from that Steelers offense, while pretty diverse, they get a lot of number of playmakers involved. There is certain limitations there, and I think you saw them a little bit against the Titans. I mean, they did a pretty good job with the whole Dinkin and Duncan thing, but in a matchup against the Ravens defense that forces turnovers, can slow down the run, they limit yards after the catch. I just think there's much more big play potential there than a lot of the teams that the Steelers have faced at this point, especially the Titans. I think that was just really a matchup nightmare last week for Tennessee. So I'm going to lay the points here. I don't feel great about it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, these two teams are fairly evenly matched. It's a divisional game. But Baltimore at home, the field goal in the hook, I'll lay the points here and take Baltimore. And again, don't feel great about it, but
I feel very confident about my pick taking the Steelers over the Ravens. You look at the battle of the trenches in this one, Steelers dominate the battle of the trenches on both sides of the ball. They have a great offensive line, which has helped protect Ben Roethlisberger all year. And they have the best pass rush in football. What are they? They're number 1 in sacks, number 1 in QB hits, and number 1 in sack rate. And they've only allowed 8 sacks. So on both sides of the ball, I love Pittsburgh's offensive and defensive lines. And you look at Lamar Jackson, his passer rating gets a little bit worse when he's under pressure versus kept clean. You could say that about every quarterback, but especially with Lamar Jackson, you put some pressure on him, he's going to make some mistakes. And then you talk about Ravens, who love to run the ball. Pittsburgh has one of the best rush defenses in football. They allow 3.3 yards per carry, and against quarterbacks, they've allowed 14 rush attempts to quarterbacks this year, only 53 rushing yards allowed, and no touchdowns. And they've gone up against Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz in those games too, two mobile quarterbacks. So I really like Pittsburgh in this one. And Big Ben, I praised him last week for not making any interceptions. He had only 1 coming into last week's game. He threw 3 last week. The Steelers still won, and he's still great. 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. And I don't see Big Ben after 3 picks last week. I don't see him having that kind of a game this week. I think he'll make the proper adjustments. And I really like Pittsburgh. I think they win straight up as well. Not just cover, but they win. It's a 7-point game, 28-21.
We're doing final scores now?
Yeah, I'm giving a final. I'm really confident in this one.
That final pick was brutal. Like, what a terrible decision to throw that ball into the end zone like he did. But But that being said, I'm with you, Andre. I'll take Pittsburgh. And Ricky, I get what you're saying too. I'm afraid
something doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. And this is it's kind of a gut play on my behalf, and which I wouldn't advise people. I guess
I'm surprised this just isn't home field advantage. A simple 3 or even like a 2.5. I guess 2.5 is because like home field advantage is weird this year. I when I'm doing my lines and stuff, I factor in 2.5 depending on where you're going. Like maybe 3 if you're going to Denver because of the air and stuff like that, or if there's a crowd. But this just feels like there's a little extra there, and I'm not sure where it comes from. Maybe it's the bye thing, but like Baltimore just 4-3 against the spread in their last 7 after the bye. They've failed to cover the last 2 games as a favorite following the bye. Just 5-12 against the spread in the last 17 games as home favorites overall. That's I saw on an odd shark, I think. So shout out to them. Pittsburgh, meanwhile, 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 as a road underdog. I do think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. You've got 2 of the slowest-moving offenses in the NFL. 2 teams that I think are trying to do the old school, establish the run. And I think they're both gonna struggle to do that because the defenses are great. But that's the thing. If it's gonna be a low-scoring game, then I guess give me the points. I think if a quarterback has to make a play later in the game, and I know I'm contradicting myself after making fun of Ben for that terrible interception late against Tennessee, I trust him more to do it. And what is the thing we talk about all the time with the Pittsburgh defense? It's they love to blitz, right? Blitzburg, whatever you want to say about that. Lamar Jackson facing the blitz this year, 57.1%, 5.5 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a 69.1 passer rating. That's not great. You go back to last year, one of the games, he went 19 of 28 for 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. I think Baltimore won that game because Mason Rudolph, Devlin Hodges, and Jalen Samuels all threw at least 2 passes for the Steelers. This is kind of interestingly, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first Roethlisberger-Jackson matchup, which is just another interesting side plot of this. But I just trust Ben a little bit more later in the game, which is probably famous last words. But again, like I said, if this is going to be a low-scoring game, I kind of, give me the points and I'll go from there.
I also think,
look at Baltimore too. Sorry, Andre, just real quick. They haven't. I mean, neither team has played a great schedule this year, but Baltimore's wins: Cleveland, Houston, Washington, Cincinnati, and Philly. So this is, I think, going to be the best offense that they faced this year, even if Deontay Johnson isn't ready to go after suffering some sort of lower body injury last week. So, Andre, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on what Ricky said at the start about, Pittsburgh being an undefeated team and the analytics liking it. I just think publicly, though, I don't think they're getting that much love, though, even though they are 6-0.
I would have expected more, too.
Exactly. I'm surprised that Pittsburgh's even an underdog in this game. I just think the fact that the analytics do like them and they do have big weapons on their team with Big Ben, and their defense is really good. And they're winning games the way they used to be winning games back in their championship days with a strong defense and big playmakers. People forget last year, Pittsburgh, they went 8-8 with those 2 quarterbacks you mentioned, Mike, with Duck Hodges and whoever the hell, Mason Rudolph. 8-8 with those 2 guys. That just shows how good they were in every other position, especially defensively. And now you have Big Ben on that team. I think this is going to be a tough day for Baltimore.
It is. I think it's the amount of line movement right out of the gate too this week is just sort of throwing me for a loop. Like, it's just like you said, Mike, the fact that you're like, you would think this would be a straight 3 right from the start. Like, it just an easy lay the 3-point spread on this game and call it a day, see what happens from there. But like, the fact that it opened as high as it did and there's been so much line movement is just, it's weird. It's weird for 2 teams that you would think by now everybody sort of has a pretty good read on. Like, I mean, this is, you mentioned how the Steelers are pretty much a continuation of last year with a better quarterback. This is the Ravens team we essentially saw last year, but maybe a little bit better. So it's a tough game to figure out from a betting perspective, thinking that you have a firm grasp on it from an actual on-field perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point in the line movement. I'm looking at it right now. Opened at 5.5. I mean, that's
wild.
The total has been bet down too. The total opened at 49. It's down to 47, 46.5 in some places. So, I guess some people are in line with where I'm at on that, but it's gonna be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one. It's unfortunate that we're gonna have to be stuck here in the New England market watching Patriots Bills. But I guess that's why they invented Red Zone and illegal internet streams. Not that I do that, but right. Anything else on that one?
No.
Okay, good. 425 window, pretty good this week as well. This is where Red Zone comes into handy. There's going to be some flipping back and forth between some games here. It feels like there's no real marquee matchup late afternoon, so that kind of we spread the wealth a little bit. Starting with a pretty big matchup in the NFC, where you got the New Orleans Saints coming off of their bye, heading to Chicago, take on the Bears. Saints, let's see here. Saints opened as so the Saints opened as 4-point favorites. They currently sit at 4-point favorites at Soldier Field. The Bears coming off of their Monday night loss to the Rams. A big game for them especially if the Packers continue to do what they do. And meanwhile, New Orleans has its own issues as well. So, and New Orleans trying to keep pace with the Bucs, who look awesome. So, like I said, New Orleans laying the 4 here on the road against Chicago. Andre, who do you like?
The Chicago Bears are what I thought they were yesterday against the Los Angeles Rams. They don't think they're a very good team. They haven't, there were a couple games out there early on that they should have lost. They came back late against crappy opponents and they won. One of them was against the Falcons. A lot of close wins against those bad teams either. All 5 of their wins were by less than 1 possession or less. Their biggest one coming by 7 points against the Panthers in week 6, 4-point win against Detroit, 4-point win against the Giants, 4-point win against the Falcons. And then they were finally exposed last week against the Rams. And now they're playing another tough opponent against the Saints. You talked about the line movement, 2.5 points to 4 points. And again, the Saints have an excellent rush defense. They allow 3.5 yards per carry. Bears aren't going to be able to get any running game going. And when that happens, Nick Foles throws the ball. You rely to throw the ball a lot, and that's not going to be good for the Bears. We saw Foles make some terrible throws yesterday. His last interception, I don't know if you guys saw it, is the easiest interception I've ever seen by Nick Foles yesterday. And I think the Saints' biggest weakness is their coverage in secondary, but I don't think Chicago has enough firepower to exploit that. So give me the Saints, better all-around team.
So during last week's show, we briefly touched on trying to find value in finding those teams that just bottomed out the week prior. I think it's safe to say that Chicago probably bottomed out this past week with that showing against the Rams. So I'm looking at this, and I think I'm able to catch some value here with that line jumping up to 4. Because I just think the Saints have some issues, of their own. You sort of touched on it, Andre, but I mean, they're coming off squeaking out wins over the Lions, Chargers, and Panthers by an average of 4 points. I mean, so that competition isn't great right there. And I just look at defensively, they're not generating much of a pass rush, so it's sort of exposing the back end of that defense. Meanwhile, the Bears just struggled because they faced a team that generates a whole bunch of pass rush to coincide with maybe the best pass defense in the NFL. So this is a much easier matchup for the Bears offense, which, look, I know it stinks for the most part, and it's got the quarterback situation up in the air a little bit. But I just think that there's a possibility that they could get on track offensively a little bit. Saints most penalized team in terms of yardage in the NFL, so I think that there's gonna be some gifts throughout the course of this game. You look at red zone defense, Saints worst in the NFL, Bears best in the NFL. The Bears 13-4-1 against the spread in their last 18 as a home underdog. So I think that just the idea of getting points at home, I like. The Saints, the status of Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders is up in the air. So this is still on the offensive side, the Drew Brees not being able to push the ball down the field. I think that's still a real thing. So I just think there's a lot of things that lead me to believe that the Bears this was just a bad spot for them against the Rams, and that I'm able to catch some value here with getting 4 points.
I don't have a whole lot left to say. Ricky kind of took all my stuff. I like the Bears as well. I'm afraid of how much I like the Bears too, Ricky, for a lot of the same reasons. Like this,
I just talked myself into that pick big time.
Yeah, this definitely feels like the perfect bounce back spot where you're everybody's going to be looking to jump off the Bears because they aren't very good. I'll give you that. Like I don't think they're nearly as good as their record indicates. To Andre's point, but people are going to be piling on against a team coming off of a short week, a team that looks terrible offensively. But I just don't. I picked the Rams last week against the Bears when it felt like everybody was on the Bears because I thought defensively the Rams could flummox the Bears, and they did. I don't see that as much here with the Saints defense that has, I think, 3 interceptions this year, which is an interesting thing. I was looking at some of the next-gen stats. The 2 most aggressive quarterbacks in the NFL this year have been Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. So, they're going to take some shots, and I just don't know if New Orleans can, if they're throwing terrible picks like Foles did on Monday night, then that's maybe one thing. But I wonder whether New Orleans can take advantage of that. Ricky, did you mention the third down defense? Chicago has a good third down defense. I know New Orleans has a good third down offense, but that's usually under the assumption that the offense is clicking, and it's just I wonder whether it will be. It doesn't sound like Michael Thomas is going to play, as you mentioned, Manny Sanders, and also Terron Armstead, their offensive tackle. He's got an arm issue. Left the game, their last game in the second quarter, didn't return. I haven't checked on him, but if that's another thing, if you're down a tackle going up against that pass rush, that's not great. Khalil Mack, despite a back issue, looked pretty good on Monday night. I just, Breeze under pressure.
That Bears offense on Monday night was forced to go about 95 yards on every drive because it was the most elite display of punting I've ever seen from your boy Andre.
Johnny Hecker had a hell of a game on Monday. Guys, you guys keep telling me how horrible this Saints defense is. Their rush defense, again, I mentioned they don't allow any rushing yards. They held Carolina to 37 total rushing yards last week. They've only allowed 100 rushing yards or more twice this year. And I think that means something. You limit Chicago's running game. You get Nick Foles to throw the ball a lot. And you guys both admit that Chicago's passing game isn't any good. You guys are saying, "Oh, Chicago's passing game is terrible," but we're still going to take them anyway.
No, so yeah, all right. But first of all, it's not necessarily only the matchup. It's the number too. Because I think Chicago's defense is good enough to slow down the Saints, especially if Michael Thomas isn't playing, because they've looked like a completely different offense without Michael Thomas. And so now if he's not playing, you're down, your best playmaker, and you haven't looked as good without him. And now you have to play a defense that maybe is not as good as it was 2 years ago, but it's still elite. So points are going to be hard to come by. And now you start doing the math in your head, and it's okay, well, if I'm getting 4 with the better defense, I like that. I understand that there are shortcomings, and you're not wrong about that. But for me, it comes down to the number more than anything else, and just feels a little too high with how good that defense is playing against an offense that could struggle to move the ball.
Chicago's defense is the best unit in this game.
Yeah.
Both sides.
I understand that, but New Orleans, the fewest points they've scored this year in the game was 24 points. Chicago has eclipsed that number just twice this season against the Lions and the Falcons. How hard is that?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they scored 10 points on Monday night, and 7 of it was from the defense. That's not good.
And anytime they play a good team, the Colts, they're also a good team. They lost to them. They only scored 11 points against the Colts.
So I wonder this too. Weather for Chicago on Sunday afternoon. Low to mid 40s, winds 12 miles per hour is what it's saying right now. That's not, that's not gusty, but that also, I think, doesn't help the Saints as well either. So
I think it helps the Saints a lot. Short passes to Kamara.
But
you trust Drew Brees more or Nick Foles in the cold weather?
No, but I don't know.
Just generally as a quarterback.
Nick Foles, maybe.
Brees is a dome quarterback, but
Foles has big hands,
cold
right?
Weather will rattle Nick Foles just as much as Drew Brees.
Foles must have big hands. Not that, but that's neither here nor there. If you know, you know. Anyway, I don't know. I'm making this pick assuming Michael Thomas doesn't play. If Michael Thomas plays, then I'm gonna feel like an idiot. But because I think that's a huge element of their offense. And if he's not playing, then go take away Kamara, and I like your chances. But if he plays, then I got to recalculate.
He might play, just not for the Saints.
Now you're talking.
Ooh,
that's not happening. I hope it does, but it's not happening. All right. Anything else on that, guys?
I got nothing. No.
Well, that was good spirited debate, though.
That was good. Yeah. All right. Also in the 4:25 hour. I did that again. It's not an hour. It's in the 4 o'clock hour. It's the quite literally the 4:25 minute. Um, the San Francisco 49ers coming off of an absolute curb stomping as the New England Patriots head up the coast to the Pacific Northwest, Puget Sound, take on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks coming off of an overtime loss to the Cardinals. Seahawks laying 3 points here. Total sits at 54. Weather doesn't look like much of an issue. Huge divisional matchup. Ricky, who do you like here?
Well, we're continuing to see the Seahawks' defensive shortcomings. I do wonder if the 49ers offense is capable of taking advantage of those shortcomings the way that we saw from the Cardinals. I know that what we saw from San Francisco against the Patriots was impressive, leaning on the ground attack to basically, I mean, that was, I don't even like Patriots defenders weren't even touching guys until they were about 15 yards downfield.
And then when they did, they got run over.
Yeah, that was just the total ass whooping, and no matter how you slice it. I think in this matchup though, the way to beat Seattle is to take the top off them. I mean, I think you got to take some shots downfield. Take advantage of that secondary, and I'm just not sure that San Francisco is going to be able to do that. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo. As good as he played against the Patriots, second lowest average depth of target in the NFL, ahead of only Drew Brees. 3.9 completed air yards per completion, lowest in the NFL. So this is not a guy that has a knack for throwing it deep. You look at the explosive play rate, 49ers 23rd in that area, 24th in terms of explosive pass plays. So I just think that their offense, while it's nice when you're able to lean on the running attack and pick up yardage that way, I think Seattle's going to take that away a little bit. And if they force them to beat them downfield, I don't know if San Francisco is able to do it. So I'll lay the points here. I'll take the Seahawks at home.
Wow, Ricky, 3 straight disagreements. I'm going with the 49ers. I don't like Seattle because, first of all, they just play a lot of close games. The last 5 Seattle games have been by 1 possession, and only 2 of Seattle's last 17 wins have been by double digits. So in general, they just play a lot of close games. And if I'm getting points, especially with a team like the 49ers, I'm going to take those points. And also, Garoppolo, when he has time to not time to throw, when he's not getting pressured, he's going to do well because he's not going to have to scramble outside of the pocket and make plays. When he gets the ball 2.5 seconds or less, throws the ball, he has the best passer rating in the NFL, 128.8. And last week, the Patriots didn't put any pressure on him. And that's why he didn't have to make any difficult throws. Same will be the case this week. Seattle doesn't have much of a pass rush, 4th lowest sack rate in the NFL. So I think Garoppolo is going to be comfortable in the pocket, and he'll be able to find his target. So I'll take the 49ers.
It's a tough one. I will take the Seahawks, though. I was actually leaning 49ers at first, and I started thinking about it. It's like, the running back injury, Jeff Wilson, doesn't sound like he'll play. That's not a huge deal, but because they just rotate guys in, and as somebody who just got burned by having Jerick McKinnon on his fantasy team this past week, I'm a little upset at how the 49ers use their running backs, but it is shrewd. So I don't think that'll be a huge deal. Deebo Samuel, though, having a hamstring injury is a big one because I feel like a lot of that offense runs through him. I know they've done a really good job of replenishing weapons for Garoppolo and Brandon Ayuk, and obviously Kittle is the best tight end of the game. But I wonder now, especially if they don't have Samuel, who they use in a bunch of different ways, whether it becomes a little bit, I think it does become a little more difficult to feed the ball to the other guys, especially Kittle. And I was just looking this up. The Seahawks have allowed just 19 catches to tight ends this year for only 281 yards, no touchdowns. You look at going out and getting a guy like Jamal Adams. This is a big reason why you do that, right? Is for this type of matchup. And I think that secondary, to Ricky's point, is pretty good. Not pretty good. I don't want to give him too much credit, but I do think that the move is to take deep shots on them, and that's where they've been most susceptible this year. And we've just got done doing a whole week of talk about Jimmy Garoppolo's long-term viability, and the fact that the 49ers don't push the ball downfield with him might be an indication of how they feel about him in the long term. They just don't throw deep with him. And so I just, to Ricky's point, I wonder if they can take advantage of that. Seattle run defense has been pretty good this year, so that's going to be tough to run on them. And just, San Francisco has shown at certain times a propensity for turning the ball over. They have 6 turnovers and 3 losses. I wonder if a couple giveaways come up at the wrong time here, and Seattle finds a way to hold on. 3 points doesn't seem Herculean. If it was a little bit more, I'd definitely have to reconsider, because to Andre's point, they close games up and down the wherever you look. But I just think a late turnover kind of does San Francisco in here, so I'll lay the points to Seattle at home.
Seattle allows 6 most yards per pass attempt. Seattle does. San Francisco allows the 6 fewest. I mean, that kind of plays along what you guys said about Seattle allowing those big plays, and whether San Francisco will exploit that or not. But I don't know. Maybe you see maybe Garoppolo does go with a couple of big shots here, and they do try to exploit that.
To whom though?
Ayuk.
I guess Ayuk is it, right? Like, but isn't Samuel better? I know they do a lot of lateral stuff with Samuel, but like, this guy flies. He's the kind of type that if he can't go, like that's their probably best vertical option.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ricky. What were you saying?
Yeah, Ricky, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, you can't bank on Russell Wilson throwing 3 interceptions this week either.
No.
I mean, that obviously was a huge factor against the Cardinals, who, another thing about that Arizona matchup was that Seattle's defense just looked tired in that game. I think Collinsworth mentioned it on the broadcast, like how gassed they look relative to just like even going back years. Like, and I think that was a lot of that is the Kyler Murray factor and just the pace at which that offense works. Which, by the way, Cardinals, fun little team. I don't know how good they are, but fun little team to watch. In San Francisco, they're able to throw so many things at you offensively, but with using their backs and getting the ball to the receivers in space, but they work pretty methodically. Like their drive pace is towards the bottom of the league. I think they might be 31st, with only Jacksonville ahead of them. So this isn't some run and gun team that's going to wear down Seattle's defense and then maybe open up those shots down the field like you mentioned, Mike. So I don't know. I think that it's just ultimately I don't think San Francisco's offensive strengths play into Seattle's defensive weaknesses.
So who did you pick?
I picked Seattle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I misspoke. I'm with you. Yeah, I gave Andre undue credit, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So
No, the credit you gave me was warranted.
Oh, okay.
You said I'm taking San Francisco because of the close games, and you said to Andre's point.
I might have said I'm with you though, but anyway, I'm not with you on this one. I'm with you on a lot of stuff, but not this. So
San Francisco, a little bit of travel involved there too, coming back from the East Coast.
Yeah, that's true.
Something to consider.
Yeah, but to that point, Seattle defense over whatever. Who cares?
Just throwing a little extra zest out there.
I hear you. Andre, who's your lock?
I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles 7.5-point favorites over the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas's offensive line continues to be extremely banged up. We saw that last week against Washington. No La'el Collins, no Joe Looney, no Tyron Smith, no Tyron Smith's backup, Brandon Knight. Their left tackle position is in shambles. Philadelphia has the 3rd most sacks in the NFL. They don't do much well, but they do get to the quarterback. So much like Washington knows how to get to the quarterback. So we're going to see a similar situation here on Sunday night in Philly.
I will take the Rams 3.5-point favorites over the Dolphins, who are making a quarterback change, controversial quarterback change. In a weird time too, because I think this is a pretty bad matchup for Tua. Just going up against the Rams passing defense that, like I touched on earlier, you can make the case of the best in the NFL. Certainly their number 1 expected points contributed according to Pro Football Reference. The Dolphins pass catchers don't create any separation whatsoever. If you look at the next gen stats, like 3 of the 4 lowest marks among pass catchers in the NFL belong to Dolphins receivers. So he's throwing into tight windows right when he comes in. I look at that Rams pass rush and what they're able to do against Chicago. Dolphins 26th in pass blocking according to Pro Football Focus. Dolphins middle of the pack in terms of yards after the catch, which is really where the Rams offense thrives. So I just think overall it's a bad matchup. Obviously you're laying points on the road, which is never a good thing. But in this situation, I think Miami might be a little overvalued to begin with the back-to-back wins. And just given the overall unpredictability of the rookie quarterback, I'm all right taking the road favorite in this one.
I'm on Thursday night again this week for my lock. I'll take Carolina laying 3 in a divisional game against the Falcons. I trust Matt Rule to have his team ready to go and motivated to play this game more than I do anybody in Atlanta. I also look at the fact that Teddy Bridgewater's been sneaky good this year, or maybe not even sneaky, he's just been good. But they don't press the ball downfield a ton, a lot of shorter stuff, and I think that kind of plays well here against a Falcons team that is allowed the most yards after catch this year. So I like Carolina here. I like them even more if Christian McCaffrey's back, but it sounds like that might be another week. But Carolina, like, good for them. They're building something. It looks like. I don't know if Teddy's the guy long term there, but they're competitive at least. So give me the Panthers here. And it's never a bad idea to fade the Falcons at this point. So
they're a team that, like, I don't know what their record's going to be at the end of the year, but it's just like the ultimate testament of, like, not all bad teams are created equal. Because the same record as a team that just is a total dumpster fire, but they're always going to be in there. It feels like
they'll be a fine 7-9.
Exactly. Yeah.
Upsets, Ricky. Who do you got?
Upset. I would love to steal Andre's upset after our little email chain earlier when I tried to hijack it, pull the rug out from under his feet. But I'll let him get to that. That was my real upset pick. I'm going to take the Patriots though. 4-point underdogs against the Bills, rolling the dice a little bit on just Bill Belichick pulling a rabbit out of his hat, which that's basically what he needs right now because that offense doesn't look great. But I do think that the Patriots offense is going to be able to run the ball a little bit. I mean, Buffalo's defense is they've got issues. So if New England can't move the ball this week, that is very telling of where Cam Newton and that offense is right now. So I just think they get back to sort of the week 1 or week 2 formula of relying on that run game, picking up yardage that way, and keeping it close in a divisional game. I don't love it because I do think that the Patriots have serious issues, but I don't know. It just feels like whenever you start to write them off going into a divisional game against a team with a susceptible defense, I'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, I might be on that one too.
The Broncos over the Los Angeles Chargers. I was about to say the Los Angeles Chargers of Anaheim, but no, it's the Los Angeles Chargers of Inglewood. Can take the Broncos. The Broncos, their losses this year come against the Tennessee Titans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Chiefs. It's a tough schedule. I had them going to the playoffs this year, and I still do as a wild card team. They can do better in the next 4 weeks, but their schedule eases up a little bit. Their defense is ranked number 3 on Pro Football Focus. They'll give Justin Herbert, the rookie, some fits.
Divisional home underdog versus a rookie quarterback in Denver, no less.
Yeah.
Like that.
Give me the Titans. Jesus, the Lions at home, getting, is it still 2.5 against the Colts? That feels weird. So I'm taking them really just because I don't understand it. Indy's defense is good. It feels like the Lions have a propensity for turning the ball over. Indy coming off a bye, and they're only laying 2.5. I'm going with the smarter people here, and I'll take the Lions. And also the Lions look, for some reason, like they're trying to save Matt Patricia's job. They've looked better the last few weeks. Matthew Stafford is quietly putting up another nice season. I know that they needed to be bailed out by Todd Gurley last week, but I don't know. I feel like they're starting to find something, especially offensively. And I think they moved the ball just enough to keep it close and maybe force Phillip Rivers to throw a late pick that does them in. So I guess I'll take the Lions. I don't feel great about it, but I got to pick somebody. So
I think the Lions are the hardest team to pick week to week.
Yeah, right. I'm probably winless with the Lions this year
because there's nothing really to suggest that they're any good, but you just I don't know if it's just like playing a hunch, but like there's always games where you're like, I could see them staying in this game.
Well, like there was no fade I felt more comfortable with than a couple of weeks ago when they had to go to Jacksonville. I thought they were going to lose a shootout, and like the defense played okay. They basically beat the hell out of the Jaguars. And I was like, I have no idea. I just threw up my hands. Like, I don't know.
And this is, I feel like it's been this way for a few years. That
definitely, yeah.
You'll look and it's just they're sort of in the middle to bottom of in terms of basically everything. and then you'll look and they're like 7-9 or something.
Yeah, like
I never know what to make of them.
they'll get killed here, and then they'll go beat the Packers in Lambeau like something.
Exactly.
So. All right, guys. Anything else?
Not me. World Series wrapped up, so.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for picks, but by the time this thing goes out, the World Series could be over. So.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Mike. That's Ricky. Andre. This has been The Spread. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe on all your iTunes and Spotify places, or just keep watching on YouTube. I don't know. Do you? But thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week. Talk to you then.